While I was in Europe, my parents spent my savings to buy my sister a studio apartment. Surprise, now she has her own place, said Dad when I returned. Next day, I intervened with a lawyer. I was in Europe for just over 2 months. What started out as a business trip to Amsterdam turned into something more personal. I kept extending my return date. A few extra days in Vienna, then Budapest, then a quiet week near Lake Como. I was about to turn 30, and frankly, I wanted to do it far away from anything that felt like a burden. Ann Arbor had begun to feel like a trap. My job was fine, my house was fine, everything was just fine. And I was tired of fine. I wanted quiet, new faces, time to think. While I was away, my sister Susan turned 26. She didn't go on a journey of self-discovery. She stayed right where she always was, hovering over my parents like their personal mascot. I called her on her birthday, wished her well, and sent her a scarf from France. She thanked me and said something vague about how great things were happening. I didn't push. Susan always said things like that. Last year the big thing was a juice cleanse business that she gave up after 2 weeks. Before that, it was learning to be a DJ. None of them ever lasted. She was the good one, though. The favorite. Always had been. Growing up, it was like she was born with a halo over her head. My parents treated her like a crystal figurine, precious, fragile, always on display. Me? I was just there. I didn't ask for much. I worked. I saved. I did what I was supposed to do. Quietly. And because I didn't cause any problems, they treated me like I didn't need anything. Especially their help. I returned to Ann Arbor on the morning of my birthday. 30. The big 30. I left my bags at home, planning to unpack later. I walked slowly through each room, feeling the strange emptiness of returning after a long journey. Everything looked fine until I reached the closet in my office. The safe was gone. Not opened. Not tampered with. Just gone. At first I thought maybe I'd moved it. Maybe I'd put it somewhere else before I left. But I searched the whole house. It wasn't there. That safe had held $140,000. Not a penny of it was inherited or gifted. Every dollar came from bonuses, investments, freelance projects I took on weekends. This money was going to be my launch pad. My fallback. My everything. I still hadn't fully processed it when I drove over to my parents' house. I assumed it must have been some kind of mistake. Maybe they had taken it to protect it. Maybe there had been a break-in. I ran through 100 possibilities on the drive over. They greeted me as if everything was normal. Smiles. Hugs. My dad was grinning, practically jumping. He said he had a surprise. Susan had her own apartment now. He said it like it was good news. Like he expected me to be happy. A 1-bedroom studio in Detroit. Cozy. Modern. Fully paid off. I asked him how. That's when the whole story came out. My parents had let themselves into my house, taken the safe, and used every cent to buy Susan the apartment. They thought it was for the best. That I wouldn't use the money. That Susan needed stability. That it was a family decision. That I'd understand. They said it in the tone people use when they think they've done something noble. As if they had sacrificed their own money. As if I should thank them. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just walked away. I sat in my car in the driveway for an hour. Thinking. Letting it sink in. Then I went home and sat on the floor of the now empty office where the safe used to be. My birthday was over. No cake. No phone calls. Not even a text from Susan. The next morning, I called the police. They told me I'd have to handle it privately. Apparently, there is nothing criminal about parents borrowing from their adult child. So I called a lawyer. Told him everything. Sent him receipts, bank records, photos of the safe. That same day, we started building the case. That's when I realized I wasn't going to play the good son anymore. That role had always belonged to Susan. Let her have it. Let her keep it. But she wouldn't keep my money. Not if I had anything to say about it. I thought hiring a lawyer would bring things back into the realm of reason. It felt like an adult move. Professional. Clean. I expected resistance, but I figured it would be the kind where people argue and then eventually compromise and maybe apologize along the way. I didn't expect what happened next. 2 days after my lawyer sent the formal letter demanding repayment, or the apartment, I came home from the gym to find my father in my kitchen. Just there, like it was normal. He'd used the emergency key. Again. The same one I forgot to replace the first time. He wasn't screaming. He didn't beg. He just stood there with his arms crossed and told me in no uncertain terms that I was overreacting. He said I was humiliating the family, complicating things, making a mess over what he called a simple gesture of love. He actually used those words. A simple gesture of love. He went on about how Susan was finally happy, how she was settling in, and how this was my chance to show that I supported her as a family should. Not once did he mention the theft. Not once did he acknowledge that they had taken everything from me without asking. His whole argument was based on the idea that I should just go along with it. Because that's what good sons do. I told him to leave. He finally did. But not before dropping a final threat. He said they were considering legal action of their own. That I should be careful because, once lawyers get involved, nobody wins. I changed the locks that night. I threw the old key in the trash. The next day, Susan posted a video on Instagram. A bubbly, overproduced tour of her new apartment in Detroit. My apartment. Bought with my money. She walked through each room with a big grin, talking about manifesting her dreams and stepping into her adult life with grace. The caption was worse. Something like, finally creating the life I deserve. Good things come when you trust the universe. Sparkles. #grateful. #blessed. #MyStudio. Not a word about how the universe in this case was me. And that it got there by draining my savings. I didn't respond. I just sent the video to my attorney. He said it would help show how she knowingly enjoyed property purchased with stolen funds. But that was only half the battle. That same evening, my mother sent me the longest text I've ever received from her. Paragraph after paragraph, written like an emotional monologue she'd been rehearsing in her head all week. She said that Susan was fragile and that this fight was making her worse. That Susan had cried for 2 days in a row. That I was always the strong one, and didn't I see how I was hurting everyone? She didn't ask me how I was doing. She didn't ask why I was upset. She didn't ask if I needed anything. It was all about Susan. Still Susan. Always Susan. Then something unexpected happened. A few days later, I received a call from my bank. One of the older investment accounts that I hadn't touched in a while had been flagged for suspicious activity. There had been several failed login attempts, and someone had tried to reset the password using outdated information associated with an old email account I'd almost forgotten. I asked the rep if they could see where the attempts were coming from. Ann Arbor. It wasn't conclusive, but it didn't have to be. The only person who had access to my old laptop, the one I used to manage this email account, was Susan. I had loaned it to her over a year ago when hers had a battery problem. And I never deleted the autofill settings. So while I was in Europe, not only had someone taken my money and bought an apartment with it, they were trying to go further. To see if there was more. Another account. Another hiding place. Another way to bleed me dry. I sat there, staring at the bank's security report, and something inside me shifted. That last sliver of doubt, the one that kept saying maybe this was all a misunderstanding, maybe they just got carried away, that voice finally shut up. This wasn't an accident. This was premeditated. Calculated. Authorized. So I changed every password I had. Put fraud alerts on all my accounts. Started working with a forensic accountant to find every dime that had moved in and out of my name in the last 12 months. And I told my lawyer to go all the way. You wanted a fight? Fine. So did I. Things escalated faster than I thought. 2 weeks after filing the civil suit, I was served with a countersuit by my parents' lawyer. I didn't even know they'd hired one. The document accused me of Emotional abuse, long-standing neglect of family responsibilities. And this one actually made me laugh out loud. Malicious interference with a gift transaction. They framed the whole thing as an act of generosity that I was now trying to undo out of spite. I sent the whole thing to my lawyer, who told me not to worry. It was weak. Full of holes. But still, it was different to see it written out like that, my own parents twisting everything to make it look like I was the problem. And then came the garbage. Literally garbage. It started with my trash cans mysteriously disappearing. I thought maybe it was a city thing, maybe the truck picked them up by mistake. So I ordered replacements. A week later, someone dumped a whole bag of rotten meat on my porch in the middle of the night. I didn't have cameras up yet, but the smell hit me like a wall the next morning. It was so bad that I had to leave the house for the day. 3 days later, someone threw eggs at my car. Twice. The second time, they added slices of bologna to the mix, that old prank trick that leaves round stains if you don't clean it off fast enough. I had to spend almost $1,000 to get the paint buffed and repainted. I didn't want to assume it was Susan, or my parents, or one of their weird friends, but the timing was impossible to ignore. No one else had a grudge against me. No one even knew I was going through this except for a few close friends, and none of them had any reason to go on a full middle school revenge spree on my property. So I installed cameras. High def. Motion activated. I didn't even hide them. 3 days after I put them up, I caught someone on video, Susan's ex, Trevor, standing in my driveway holding a garbage bag. He looked right into the camera and dropped it next to my car. Inside was a mixture of shredded paper, food scraps, and what looked like burned mail. Oddly specific. I sent the footage to my lawyer, who filed a restraining order the same day. We added it to the case. Susan, of course, denied any involvement. She claimed that Trevor had acted on his own. But everyone knew what it was, another passive-aggressive, cowardly way of saying she wasn't backing down. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just cold. Numb. Every petty move they made just hardened me more. But I wasn't playing defense anymore. That week, my attorney filed a formal motion to freeze the deed, stop any renovations, and initiate a forensic audit of every transfer tied to my accounts in the 6 months before I bought the apartment. We also filed a subpoena for Susan's financial records. And then something interesting happened. We discovered that she'd applied for a credit card using my social security number. She didn't get approved, her credit was trashed, and the mismatch raised a red flag, but it was there in the logs. A complete application, submitted online, using my name and SSN. Suddenly, this wasn't just a civil case. It was criminal. And now it wasn't just about the apartment. The moment we found the credit card application, everything changed. Up until that point, everything had been a civil matter. A family dispute, a property dispute, a financial betrayal that was bad but still technically in the gray area of legality. But using my social security number to try to open a line of credit, that was identity theft. Felony territory. My lawyer turned it over to a criminal lawyer he was working with. A week later, we filed a police report with all the evidence. The application logs, the IP address, even a screen capture of the timestamp showing when it was submitted. It was enough to start an investigation. I didn't tell my parents or Susan. I just let the system do what it was designed to do for once. Meanwhile, the forensic audit was completed, and it turned out that the apartment wasn't the only thing my money had bought. She'd also spent nearly $9,000 on furnishings. High-end mattress, smart TV, espresso machine, a custom-made bookcase that she probably thought made her look well-read. All charged to a debit card linked to a joint account she'd somehow accessed, one I'd used years ago for a joint savings fund we never really used. The paper trail was solid. My money, her purchases. My lawyer filed a motion to force the sale of the condo and to recover damages. He said it might take a while, but we had more than enough evidence. It wouldn't be a quick process, but it would move. And the court had already frozen the deed, meaning she couldn't rent it, sell it, or legally renovate anything until the matter was resolved. I also filed to recover the full $140,000, plus attorney's fees, plus the cost of repairs to my car and property. Then came the fallout. My father called me 3 times in one day. I didn't answer. He texted me and said we could still work this out before it got out of control. Out of control? It was never out of control. They just thought they had the power to make the rules. Susan's Instagram disappeared. I guess someone told her the video tours weren't doing her case any favors. Her friends started unfollowing me in waves, some of them even DMing me, saying they were disappointed I was taking things this far. They had no idea what was going on. They just believed whatever version of the story she was selling them. But the thing that hit me the hardest was from my mom. She sent me a picture of our family on vacation years ago. All of us smiling. Cape Cod. A time when things actually felt okay. No message. Just the picture. As if that erases everything. As if I should look at it and forget what they did. There will be a trial. That much is guaranteed now. The criminal case is separate, but it's on. Susan could be facing real charges. Identity theft is not a slap on the wrist. And as for the money, my lawyer says there's a good chance we'll recover a significant chunk through the court-ordered sale of the apartment and garnishment of her wages, assuming she ever holds down a job long enough. It won't be quick. It won't be clean. But it's in motion. And at this point, I don't even want the apartment back. I want the message to be clear. You can't rob someone and call it love. Even before the legal stuff started, things were getting close to Susan. I could feel it. Her confidence was slipping, as if she realized this wasn't going to go away. I wasn't talking to her, of course, but people talk. Friends talk. She stopped posting. Stopped showing up for anything. Her silence spoke louder than any of the garbage Trevor dropped in my driveway. Then came the email. She sent it to my lawyer, not to me. Just a few lines, basically saying she wanted to have a conversation and was open to finding a solution that works for everyone. She didn't say the word payback. Not once. But it was the first time she even acknowledged that this situation might not end with her just keeping the apartment. My lawyer didn't even respond. We weren't playing the nice game anymore. Behind the scenes, we were pushing hard on the financial side. The audit was almost done. We had receipts for every major purchase tied to my accounts. $140,000 for the apartment. $8,973 in furniture. $1,200 in Uber Eats. 3 separate wellness retreats, totaling over $4,000. It was almost laughable how careless she'd been. Like she thought there'd never be any consequences. Then a funny thing happened. Susan's job, some part-time marketing gig she had in Detroit, fired her. I don't know if it was related to the case, or if it was just her usual pattern of burning out, but the timing was bad. Without a steady income, she couldn't pay the monthly utilities, HOA fees, or anything else. The place was nice, yes, but the bills didn't care who paid them. That's when her tone changed. Her attorney sent a proposal. Not great, but a start. They offered to start paying the money back in monthly installments. No mention of selling the condo. No apology. Just numbers. It felt like they were stalling, hoping I'd take whatever scraps they offered to avoid going to court. But what they didn't count on was what came next. My lawyer found out that the title to the apartment was still technically under the name of a holding company that my parents had used to process the sale. Apparently they thought it would be cleaner than putting it in Susan's name, probably for tax reasons or some other backwards logic. And guess what? The company had me listed as a silent partner because the funds came from my account, and the wire transfer had stupidly gone through with my initials still on the transaction slips. Paperwork is a funny thing. That gave us a way in. Since my money was part of the official purchase, and since I was named in the holding company structure, albeit inadvertently, I now had a legal way to claim partial ownership of the property. Not just the money. The asset itself. My attorney filed a motion to foreclose on the apartment. And now Susan had a decision to make, either start selling her things and pay back the full amount, or risk losing the entire apartment outright and watching the proceeds get split legally with me. For the first time, she was boxed in. And she knew it. She never had to give up anything before. Not even once. But now it was either give the money back or lose everything. The money came back in pieces. First, the apartment went on the market. The court ordered the sale after everything lined up proof of the transaction from my account, the holding company with my name buried in the paperwork, and Susan's unwillingness to make any kind of meaningful repayment. She stalled as long as she could, but the pressure finally cracked. Her lawyer backed off. Mine pushed forward. When the sale finally went through, I didn't even feel excited. I just felt done. Like watching someone finally clean up a mess they swore wasn't their fault. After realtor fees and taxes and whatever emotional gymnastics Susan tried to pull to claim she deserved a small cut, I got back $126,500. Not the full $140,000, but enough. More than enough. I didn't even blink. I transferred most of it to a new account at a new bank, under a new business name. I didn't make the same mistake twice. Then I did what I knew I was going to do the moment I walked into my empty house after returning from Europe. I cut them off. Completely. Blocked numbers, emails, social accounts. Not a single word to anyone. I didn't write a long note explaining why. I didn't wait for an apology that never came. I just ended it. And then I listed my house. 6 weeks later, a couple in their early 30s bought it. They loved the backyard. They said it was perfect for a dog and maybe a kid. I gave them the keys without telling them what had happened inside these walls. Without telling them that I had once come home from a life-changing trip to find that the people who raised me had emptied everything I had. I sold what I didn't need, packed what I did need into 2 large suitcases, and booked a one-way flight to Portugal. I left on a Thursday morning in October. It was gray in Ann Arbor. That low-hanging sky you get just before the first snow, when everything feels like it's on pause before winter really kicks in. I didn't say goodbye. Not to anyone. As the plane took off, I didn't look down. Now I live in a small flat in Porto. Nothing fancy, but it has this little balcony with chipped tiles and a view of the river. I work remotely. I freelance. I drink too much espresso. I walk everywhere. I have a friend who owns a bar on the edge of town. He barely speaks English, and my Portuguese is garbage, but we get by. He calls me, "O Americano." I like that. Some nights I sit by the river with a cheap bottle of wine and wonder how it ever got this far. Not just the money. All of it. How long I let them treat me like a backup plan. How I spent so much of my life being the responsible one, only to be the disposable one. But then I laugh. Because it's absurd. Like something out of a weird, off-brand Gulliver's Travels, where the island is filled with smiling faces and knives in the back. And I was stupid enough to think it was home. It's not dramatic here. It's not a movie. It's quiet. Honest. Mine. And honestly, if you've made it this far, thank you. Really. I didn't post this for pity. I just needed to say it. Somewhere. To someone. Every comment, every message, every person who said, "Yeah, that was messed up. You helped. More than you know." So thank you. To all of you. From Portugal, David.